Welcome to Football Today, Wednesday. I don't know the date off the top of my head. It's December 4th. How's everybody doing today? I'm Bobby Skinner here with Justin Penik. And want to break down the Trevor Lawrence Azeez Al-Shaair thing because it's become this is crazy on both sides thing where he should be suspended for the season or for not at all because of past precedent. So we're going to talk about that. But before that, we're going to power rank the current wildcard teams. So the 5 through 7 seed in the AFC and the NFC, just power rank them as we view them as like playoff and Super Bowl contenders. Justin Penik, how we doing? How we feeling?
I'm feeling much better. The hot tub that I was in this weekend over Ohio State, the pH imbalance was bad. Hey, if you own a hot tub, make sure your pH balance is good so you don't F anybody up.
So this is the first time I've talked to you since, because I've recorded shows without you. How do you know that's what it was?
Because my mother, when we first got our hot tub when we were growing up, she had the same thing, fully diagnosed, fully everything, and immediately like the same symptoms, the same marks. So we just knew exactly what it was. And also I looked it up online. I have marks like on my body, but it's mainly on my legs.
Well,
I'll show you after.
That's why. No, you won't. Some are saying Dan Patrick poisoned that hot tub, but I'm not one of them. But we welcome on the listeners from the Dan Patrick Network. All right, so we're going to power rank our wildcard teams 1 through 6. Should we? I mean, I guess we always start at the bottom. Who is your number 6 wildcard team? So this isn't officially the team with the least likelihood to advance in the playoffs and make the Super Bowl because we're not including division winners, and I think there's a chance a division winner may be the weakest team in the NFL. But who is your number 6 for just power wildcard teams?
I have the Commanders.
I do as well. And what is like your main reason why the Commanders aren't ahead of the Chargers, the Packers, Ravens, Broncos, Vikings?
Number 1, I think Cliff Kingsbury in the month of November, December is a real thing. And they have 2 wins this month, but their 2 wins are over the Giants and the Titans, and then their 3 losses that are pancaked in between those 2 wins are the Steelers, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. That Cowboys loss was bad, man. Really, really bad loss. But 3 kind of decently-ish. Cowboys aren't a good team. I don't think this Commanders team has enough talent. I think they should be commended on a very, very good season. Jaden Daniels should win Offensive Rookie of the Year, even with Bo Nix having a strong second-half push. There was still we haven't really seen anything like the first 9-10 weeks of Jaden Daniels' season. I think he should almost win Offensive Rookie of the Year off that alone. But I don't think this roster, this offensive line, and especially that defense is ready to make any kind of postseason push. And unless they're playing a team coming out of the AFC South, or really, unless they're playing the Atlanta Falcons, I don't really see them winning a playoff game.
I like I said, I think they're not going to face the Atlanta Falcons most likely unless
they wouldn't.
Things flip. So there's a good chance they're going to be playing the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that defense. My main thing is the defensive talent. I think that defense has exceeded, but I just think that defensive talent's going to catch up with them. By the way, I've become a Brock Bowers Offensive Rookie of the Year. You're the best at your position. You all pro your position. You get Rookie of the Year. It's not I'm not turning a Rookie of the Year into just a Best QB award, because I don't want it to be that. So I want Brock Bowers to win Rookie of the Year. But off of that side note, it's just the Commanders haven't looked as good. Now they did smack the Titans around, but those are also that's the only team the New York Jets beat this year. They're a team that's contending for the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. So I'm not going to be overly impressed with that, but I'm very impressive that the Commanders are even in the playoffs at this point. I'm pretty confident they're going to get in. They're 2 games up on the Bucs with and the Rams with 5 games left. I do think that they get in. It's not a lock, but Commanders are my number 6 wildcard team as well.
Yeah, they have a bye week this week. They have the Saints, Eagles, Falcons, Cowboys to finish off the year. If they go 2-2, they probably get in at 10-7.
Yeah, it'd be hard to miss that 10-7, or 2-2. What are they right now? They're 7-5, right?
They're 8-5 because they just beat the Titans. They have a bye week, week 14, and they finish at Saints, home against Eagles, home against Falcons, at Cowboys.
This is the last week for bye week, so I keep forgetting that teams have had not had their
I
bye
know,
week.
it's very late, very weird.
So I think 2-2 is very doable for them. All right, number 6 for me is going to be the team that's won on Monday Night Football, a team that's hot, the number 2 defense in the NFL. I'm going to go to the Denver Broncos.
And this is number 5, correct? Because you just said number 6?
Yes.
Number 5. So, yeah, number 6, Commanders, and then number 5, I also have the Denver Broncos.
Okay, so why are we not, fully bought into what the Denver Broncos are doing right now?
Again, I'm going to certainly they're not lacking defensive talent, and I legitimately do think that this is a defense that can do some good things in some big games. They have had some games, even like the Browns, where they've had they've allowed a lot of points, they've allowed a lot of yards. But we know that pass rushers can win in the postseason. I don't know. I'm still not fully believing that Bo Nix and that offense and that offensive talent can win against better defenses. Call me a hater.
Huh?
Right? I said, call me a hater at this point, but I'm really impressed with Bo Nix, and he's been over the last 2-ish months. He's been borderline a top 12, top 10 quarterback.
He's played really well, and in the beginning of the season,
really
it was god awful. He was the first month, I was and I wasn't the biggest, but I had Bo Nix rated ahead of Michael Penix. I talked about how I thought his film was much better than J.J. McCarthy's.
Yeah.
And then obviously I didn't have any of those guys in the same level as the Caleb, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels level. So I thought but that first month of the season, or even his first 6 weeks, I'm this is really bad. This guy's unsettled. His feet aren't there. He's missing passes. He's not dealing with pressure. Now, he has not had to face a lot of pressure in his last month or so as well. And I think that, but, their last 3, they've on a 3-game winning streak being the Browns, the Raiders, Falcons. The Falcons one is fairly impressive. The Falcons are a division leader right now. Got beat by the Chiefs 16-14. That was on the blocked field goal, but still only scored 14 on them. And then got smoked by the Ravens 41-10. Then their wins before that, Panthers, Saints, then lost to the playoff Chargers, and then, I won't go over the first month of the season because Bo Nix has been a much better quarterback since then. So I think that defense is, again, it's one of these attacking defenses that comes at you. It brings it all game long. But at the end, that offensive line is performing really well. I just don't trust that offense to put up enough points in the playoffs when it matters. I don't think that defense, as good as it is a carry you through a couple rounds type of defense.
Can see them beating a wild card team though, with that defensive performance and that pass rush just shutting everything down. Patrick Surtain shuts down a number 1 wide receiver. I definitely could see them shutting.
Right now they'd be playing the Bills
matchup
in the first round though.
Oh, the Bill. It depends how the AFC shakes up too. Because the Bills could lose a game, the Steelers could go up there.
Yeah, you get Broncos Steelers. It's that they did lose to the Steelers early in the year, but that's they lost 13-6. Now, but I'd say both teams have different quarterbacks at this point. Bo Nix is not what he was in that matchup, and Justin Fields is not the quarterback. But yeah, they can beat the Steelers. I'd pick the Steelers, but they can beat them. So. All right, so we have the same one. We need to start differing on some of this stuff, Justin. Who is your number 4 out of your 6 wildcard teams?
I have the Vikings.
I have the Vikings number 1.
Whoa!
That defense is hard to prepare for, right? And also think about this a little bit. It's not about opponent, but think about this. Think about Brian Flores' defense versus Jalen Hurts, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, Jordan Love, and Jaden Daniels. The Lions, I'm not comparing many teams. I'm not comparing any of these teams against how they'll do against the Lions. But hell, they almost did beat the Detroit Lions. So there's a divisional foe part where they have a chance in that one too. The offense is obviously super talented. They can run the ball. And I do have worries about Darnold in a playoff game. But I also think they're good enough to overcome if he's having some turnovers, which they've been able to do this year. They have they only have 2 losses on the year. The Vikings are my number 1 team. Again, if we're ranking quarterbacks in this, yeah, I'm not feeling comfortable with that at all compared to the rest of these teams. But just overall team coaching, I think the Vikings can make some actual noise in these playoffs.
I think quarterback is a huge part of this in terms of like who is really contending for Super Bowl. And I would just put these other quarterbacks in this wild card bracket ahead of where the Vikings are now. And also, the Vikings are a frisky team. They are a dangerous team. But they also lack talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where Brian Flores has been a really, really good coach. And I know they have Gernard, and I know Van Ginkel's been really good for them too. Van Ginkel really only has like a 10% win rate on true pass sets. Gernard's been really, really good. And don't get me wrong, Van Ginkel's been really good for them as well. Byron Murphy's been good for them in the secondary. Stephon Gilmore's been pretty solid, but still, like, there's not a ton of like firepower superstar names on that defense that, like, who can I see really stepping up and making that game-winning play for the Minnesota Vikings?
But they're all
when it comes down to it in the
playoffs in a Brian Flores defense.
I know, but it's still. I think the postseason can come down to Jimmy's and Joe's though. Whereas scheme is good. Everybody has good scheme. Everybody has a good game plan. Everybody knows what you're about in the postseason. There's so much film on everybody. Where I think it may come down to Jimmy's and Joe's, and I just don't know if the Vikings at this point of their roster build have that, and especially it comes at quarterback too.
So I agree when we're talking about a team that plays too high, right? The Vic Fangio defenses and stuff. But that defense, man, it's just hard for the best quarterback. Like, the best quarterbacks just have to be on their A game, and they've made some of the best quarterbacks look awful this year. And you look at the NFC, like, we don't love the quarterbacks in the NFC. Hell, even the Lions, with the Jared Goff, like, you compare that versus the top of the AFC, it's not even close. So if they were in the AFC, maybe I wouldn't be taking them as serious. But with the NFC, with that talent, they have, the best record out of all these teams too, which, plays some part. And they're, like, the Minnesota Vikings' only losses are against the Detroit Lions, which they lost on a game-winning field goal, and then they lost to the Rams 30-20 the week after. They, beaten the Texans. They've beaten the Packers, right? That game looks like a 2-point game, but they really beat the shit out of them. I don't think that score tells the story. Beat the Cardinals last week in a tight game where they had to pull it out at the end. But I really am a believer of these Minnesota Vikings.
I mean, who's to say? And I don't even want to hate on the Vikings, but who?
Like, when's the last time we had a division that was just flat out?
This is the case for the Vikings, Packers, and Lions. This division is still up for grabs.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, when has a division been this good? Like, when's the last time we had a division that was just flat out this damn good, where, like, there's multiple teams that can, like, you can see making a Super Bowl?
That's a good question. I have no clue. Comment down below if you
Nobody in the NFC. I kind of want to go through this exercise. I mean, I guess the AFC North has had some times when they were like that. But
there's been times where divisions have been this close, but not because the records are this good.
But I'm talking about, like, just three teams that are just, like, you can make an argument for, top 8 in the NFL.
Well, here's my hope. My hope is that Vikings at Lions on January 5th. Right now it's slated to be a 1 p.m. game. I'm hoping, part of me hopes that this is for the NFC North title, flex that to a somewhat significant time slot, and we're going to have a party. That's my hope.
By the way, Packers, we're going to record after the Thursday night game this week.
What's the Thursday night game this week?
Lions and Packers.
Ah, okay.
We kind of got it. That's game of the week right there. Number 4 for me is the Chargers. You know me, I love myself some Los Angeles Chargers. I don't know if that offensive talent is just there to hang in the playoffs. Like, I really like that defense, but even then, they are where you talked about, like, everyone's got scheme in the playoffs. Like, I think the Chargers have truly benefited from maybe the easiest schedule in the NFL, and that's one reason why I picked them to win so many games this year. But, they lost to the Ravens. Like, tell me that, like, they beat the Broncos, but again, Bo Nix was a different. But I would pick them 1v1 versus the Broncos, and they're their team we ranked second to last in this. I just think they're not really a team that can beat, like, Lamar, Allen, and, like, a duo, like, two of Lamar, Allen, or Burrow. Sorry, Lamar, Allen, or Mahomes in the playoffs. And to win as a wild card team, you're probably going to have to beat 2 of those guys.
So number 3, again, I had the Vikings 4. Number 3, I have the Ravens. And then I do have the Chargers ahead of the Ravens.
Okay, so I have the Ravens number 2. So we're obviously going not out of order, but our orders are different. So let's go 1 through 6 right now. My 1 through 6 is Vikings, Ravens, Packers number 3, Chargers number 4, Broncos number 6, Commanders. Vikings 1.
You've been getting the numbers wrong all episode.
Ravens number 2, Packers number 3, Chargers number 4, Broncos number 5, Commanders number 6.
I have Packers 1, Chargers 2, Ravens 3, Vikings 4, Broncos 5, Commanders 6.
Why? I felt dirty not putting the Ravens number 1. They have the best quarterback in all of this. They have, Derrick Henry. Their defense is starting to come together a little bit. I worry about them not playing with a lead, and where Derrick Henry is playing good but not having a dominant rushing game.
Boom. And you want to know, so I follow some Ravens people and some Ravens people that break down film. And
Does film study Ravens?
He's one of them, and then another guy that interacted. I forget his name, but another guy that interacted with a Chiefs video that I made a while back, and I followed him. Something that I talked about a lot during the summer and after the first game of the season, where they lost against the Chiefs, where their offensive line was exposed, and then credit to the Ravens staff and credit to their offensive line coach, where the Chiefs' offensive line and the weak parts of their offensive line, particularly the right side, has not been a talking point. I think over the last 3 weeks, especially against the Steelers and against the Eagles, Jalen Carter, had some good plays, and the Eagles' front is kind of dangerous. I think the Eagles' offensive line is going to be exposed in the playoffs,
Ravens,
and particularly the Ravens' offensive line is going to be exposed in the playoffs. I think it's not very good. The right side, Falele is inconsistent. Whoever they have running out there at right tackle, whether it's Rosengarten or if they're their other swing guy, I think they're going to be exposed. And especially if they get down early, like you said, Bobby, and Lamar Jackson has to drop back and they have to push the ball down the field. This is where pressure can get to Lamar, whether it's physically or metaphorical pressure that you need to carry the football team. I think that offensive line is going, again, Jimmy's and Joe's in the postseason. It's going to be exposed. And I think that's why I trust the Chargers more, even though, they're not the most talented either. And also this Ravens defense is not nearly as dominant as what it was last year. It's borderline not even a good defense.
No, it's really not by any statistical measure. But with some of the guys you have on there, you kind of have some trust in them with, Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
They also have a kicker issue.
Oh, huge kick! Justin Tucker shouldn't.
They've lost games because of they don't have a kicker on the practice squad unless they signed one since we recorded on Monday. They need to go sign a kicker to their practice squad because Justin Tucker has been he'll be a ring of honor and for the Ravens. We're talking about trying to win a Super Bowl here, and he may be a disadvantage for you, which is a crazy thing to think about how quickly it happened for him. But he's become an issue for them. But I don't. At the same time, you kind of hope he gets out of this funk and is a good kicker for you next year. So it's how do you go about that? So I think they have an issue. But they did just beat the Chargers, so I have them over the Chargers. And so you have the Packers number 1, and we'll finish off with this and before we get into the Trevor Lawrence stuff. I'm not I think the Packers are capable. I think they can go to the Super Bowl. I got to see more from them. The most impressive thing I think the Packers have done this year is going undefeated with Malik Willis at quarterback. And that's awesome, but that's not what's going to win you a Super Bowl. It's about winning with Jordan Love, which they have done. But I thought they got beat badly by the Vikings. They lost to the Lions. They lost to the Eagles week 1. Obviously, teams are a lot different. But if anything, the Eagles look a lot better than what they did in that week 1 matchup. The Packers have losses to the Eagles, Vikings, Lions. They have wins over the Dolphins, the Purdy-less 49ers, the Bears on a blocked field goal, the Jags, Texans, Cardinals, and Rams. So, Texans, Cardinals, and Rams are some solid wins, but they're not these season-defining wins.
And before we talk about this Trevor Lawrence and Azeez Al-Shaair situation, we got to talk about DraftKings. Today's episode is sponsored by DraftKings. Grab your favorite team's jersey and some snacks and head to the couch for another Sunday of action-packed football. Get even closer to the action each Sunday with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, all new customers who bet just $5 are going to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. When you use our code football today, all one word, staying on the action, use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays. First shot and an even bigger payout. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry, you can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers use promo code football today. Bet just $5 on any wager. Get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code football today only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. You will be glad you did. I won some money because in the first quarter, I said Michigan plus 9.5. Boom. And I won some money when I was at the Michigan-Ohio State game. There was pepper spray on the field.
Some were saying you got pepper sprayed, but that was confirmed to be false.
Yeah, I was up in the 300s.
Well, people get pepper sprayed. That's honestly the most. If you ask me what's the most likely place for someone to get pepper sprayed, I'd say
it's
up
in the 300s. Yeah, it's a good point.
All right, so let's talk about this Trevor Lawrence, Azeez Al-Shaair thing. And thing by I mean Azeez Al-Shaair trying to take fucking Trevor Lawrence's head off. So he was suspended for 3 games, Justin, and I just kind of want to lay all this out there, and then we can talk about it. We don't need to spend time on this. So he's suspended for 3 games, and then the NFL rules thing, and this computer doesn't have the statement that I had pulled up, so let me...
By John Runyon.
By John Runyon, right? And there's a discussion of whether it's hypocritical for John Runyon being in this position because of some of the hits he had, but nonetheless, that is his job, and you can't judge him based off of that. So they come out with this during your game against the Jacksonville Jags, and we've all seen the hit. Don't need to describe it. During your game against the Jacksonville Jags on December 1st with 4 minutes and 20 seconds remaining in the second quarter, you were involved in a play that the league considered unacceptable and a serious violation of the playing rules. Video shows you striking the head, neck area of the Jags quarterback Trevor Lawrence after he clearly goes down in a feet-first slide. You led with your forearm and helmet and delivered a forceful blow to the head, neck area of your opponent. You had time and space to avoid such contact. After the illegal hit, you proceed to engage in a brawl, which you escalated when you pulled an opponent down to the ground by his face mask after the referee announced that you were disqualified for the hit and your unsportsmanlike acts. You removed your helmet and re-engaged with your opponent while walking down and across the field, which started another physical confrontation near the end zone. Your lack of sportsmanship and respect for the game of football and those who play, coach, and enjoy watching it is troubling and does not reflect the core values in the NFL. Your continued disregard for the NFL playing rules puts the health and safety to both of you and your opponents in jeopardy and will not be tolerated. So let's talk about it. D'Amico Ryans, in his presser, talked about how QBs slide late or go out of bounds last second. This was not that, right? If we're talking about the way Patrick Mahomes can play the games or Kenny Pickett and a couple years ago at Pitt, then yeah, that stuff's bullshit. If a QB is on the field towards the sideline and he's maybe trying to bait you in and get an extra couple yards, crush him. I don't care. Get out of bounds, quarterback.
And that's exactly what Caleb Williams did earlier in the year. Azeez Al-Shaair, which people are using Aziz's previous actions of being dirty. Caleb Williams does this thing where he slows up, waits to get hit, and tries to bait people into a flag. That shit shouldn't fly.
Right. But here's the issue is that you could see the intent from Azeez Al-Shaair and what he did versus Trevor Lawrence. It's not just about freeze-framing and slowing it down. You watch it live, and you're like, you watch it live from every angle, and it looks like you're doing that on purpose. You mentioned the Caleb Williams thing. He threw a punch on Roschon Johnston on that. He crushed Tony Pollard out of bounds. He's grabbed Brady by the neck. That is a part of the story when it comes to Azeez Al-Shaair. And D'Amico Ryans saying their sideline overreacted. Shut the fuck up, D'Amico Ryans. Their sideline did not overreact at all. If anything, they reacted less than they should have because they should have had his fucking helmet in the ground for that bullshit. And then here's the person I actually agreed with a little bit. Nick Caserio, the Texans GM, talking about no consistency. He mentioned Derwin James getting all these penalties and then suspended 1 game. Brian Branch ejected and then played the next week. And then I thought the one that he brought up the best was Kareem Jackson, who has been ejected and fined 3 times before he was suspended for 1 game. So I actually agree. A 3-game suspension that's brand new. That's brand new. And I don't think Azeez Al-Shaair, despite past offenses, has been this repeat offender where he needs that. But what I don't like from Nick Casario is talking about him being a captain and going to charity events to defend him. Like, that sounds silly. Like, says this bullshit about how he's being painted by referencing the run. No, I don't think it's bullshit at all. Like, like maybe we can have a discussion of John Runyon being, the VP of Policy and Rules Administration, that being hypocritical, but have fun killing the messenger. Like, I'm sorry, but if you lay a guy out who gave himself up to put him in the fucking fencing position, then you keep engaging in this stuff post-play, brawling, and still don't stop jawing all the way until the fucking locker room, you get to be painted however the public wants when you have this past history, right? And then I thought his apology sucked, right? It started good, and then he's blaming reporters and shit for what they're writing about him. Fuck that, dude. Fuck that. You do that, you get criticized. So I actually agree that 3 games is too much of a suspension, but spare me the fucking pity party that the Texans are trying to be put out there about how, Azeez Al-Shaair. Maybe if you didn't grab Brady by the neck and have these late hits, and then are trying to fight people all the way into the fucking locker room after a guy's in the fencing position, then I maybe have a little more pity for you. I have no pity for Azeez Al-Shaair. I don't think he should be suspended for 3 games. I think it should be 1 game, but I'm not crying about it because, I think his reaction to this and blaming media and shit, it drives me fucking insane. Or driving fans to act, saying racism and Islamophobia. No, you put a guy in a fencing position and then continue to try and fight people afterwards. I understand defending yourself when Ingram comes and puts you in the ground and the team, but continuing.
Yeah, but taking your helmet off. Yeah, taking your helmet off when Brandon Sheriff, is coming up to him afterwards. But again, you're suspending a guy not for. I guess they also suspended him for the.
He should be suspended for 1 game. Unless the NFL wants to change the rules, which I think that's a deadly game, a dangerous game to be playing, and change the standard. But I think he should be suspended for 1 game. Fine him, whatever, but he should be suspended for 1 game. I do think this is a bad precedent for the NFL to send because I feel like this is a bit of an overreaction to an incident. But
I agree, and we have to be quick with this. But there is no consistency. There is no and this is the thing with the NFL. Where I agree that you gotta suspend. You gotta suspend him for there was intent there. You're lowering the forearm, you're lowering your head, you're going after the guy's neck. There's intent there, and I think there even is a conversation around the overprotection of the quarterback in the NFL, where it's also on the quarterback. Where if you want to be protected, you gotta fucking also protect yourself. Yeah, and that's not on Trevor Lawrence. That's on the Mahomes thing, the Josh Allen fake slide, Caleb Williams. It's on. And
there's times where guys will slide and they may take a hit. This was different. You saw Azeez Al-Shaair adjust to get a hit on him.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's times where it looks bad, but it's you can tell, or at least it's questionable if the intent was there. This, I think when you watch this in live action, not freeze framing it, there looks like clear intent from Al-Shaair to make a hit on him.
But in terms of the NFL just as a sanctioning body, there is no consistency. And this is with a lot of things that they rule on, whether it's on the field, whether it's off the field, whether it's substance abuse or sexual abuse stuff that they've ruled on in the past. There is no consistency. There is no precedence. There is no guidelines. They rarely have any guidelines. It's the NFL doing what it wants when it wants to, based on public pressure. Like Tua freezes up. I don't even know the guy that hit Tua all those times when he freezes up. You don't know it, but it's always there. But it's the public. Ironic. But it's the public pressure whenever there's public outcry and pressure for the NFL to do something, then they will react and at times overreact. Where there is no guideline to what they do. It's like, all right, 3 games. All right, cool. That Brian Branch hit was gross, man. Was fucking gross. I did a short on it. I did a breakdown on it. Like, that is a gross hit. Where it was even arguable whether Brian Branch should have even been thrown out of that game or just a personal foul penalty.
Well, here's the difference is that we haven't seen this happen on a guy who's giving himself up since Joe Flacco and Kiko Alonso. I don't know how many years ago that was. The only other thing I think of is Rob Gronkowski jumping on that guy's back after the play. But we haven't seen anything like where it's the quarterback sliding and there looks like there's intent to make a hit on him.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's an episode. We will see you guys on Friday. We'll recap the Lions and Packers game on Thursday Night Football, and then give you a little preview for Week 14. I'm Bobby Skinner. That's Justin Penik, and this is Football Today.